Dr. Smoker. So I'm Rachel Hidley. I teach in Lansing, New York, which is just outside of Ithaca, New York. After graduation, I started the process of growing my personal studio. Since my husband and I were settling down in the area, we were living in a small apartment by the lake, so it really wasn't conducive to having a private studio in our house, so we ended up having, I traveled to students' homes. So then 3 kids in a house later, I am happy to say I am maintaining a thriving studio out of my home and continually updating my waiting list. So I'm here today to share with you some of the things that I think were instrumental in growing and maintaining my studio. Let me just click through here. So I put my kiddos in this presentation because becoming a mom, especially of school-aged children, so my son Turner, he's in 1st grade, he's 6, and Jane is 3, and then our newest is Cole, he's 6 months. Becoming a mom of these school-aged kids has really revealed an extracurricular climate that really fascinates me. And it begs the question, how are our children experiencing different art forms outside of school life? And that's where we come in, the private studio owners. In an ever-changing world of technology and constant stimulation, how do we as music teachers make the sustained gratification of our profession comparable to other extracurricular activities while still preserving the prestige of our art form? So I plan to discuss some of those ways that I've at least tried, and I'm still trying to do that. So in this first segment, I want to talk about growing our studio numbers in this contemporary and technologically advanced atmosphere we find ourselves in. So when you think about private music instruction, it seems impossible to almost marry the concept of technology and traditional music teaching. However, before we delve deeper into that, I want to talk about growing our numbers. So, word of mouth marketing. This may seem a bit on the nose, and of course, word of mouth is a great marketing tool. However, you need mouths to get the word out. And if you're like me and new to an area, and you don't have any connections, especially if you just graduated, you might not know many of these mouths that we need. So how does one assert themselves to people they don't know or have never come in contact with? I actually just recently had a friend move down to North Carolina, and she was a piano teacher in Pennsylvania. And she said, I don't know what to do. I had a thriving studio because I was connected in a church, I accompanied for a school, but now I don't know anybody. I mean, I go to the grocery store and no one knows me. How do I get students? And one of the things that I found that was really, and there's an example of, it's called an e-introduction. Has anybody ever been e-introduced? I think that's what they're calling it. Or has anybody e-introduced anyone else? So what it is you're making a connection between either 2 people or introducing yourself through email or some social media outlet. So, and I really encourage you to do this. It seems a little scary at first if you look at the letter that I sent to the local school teachers. It's just very basic, and I send it to, I think, all the surrounding public schools. You can also, I encouraged this friend of mine to send it to her music stores as well. She was a little reluctant at first because she said, well, don't they have music teachers of their own? And really, I think we're all in this together, and music stores are also looking for ways to, if they can't provide lessons for a student, who are they going to turn to? So that's what I did. I e-introduced myself, and I got hooked into the Lansing School District that way. That was my first kind of plug-in. The other thing that I wish I would do more of, and I just did this, but my business cards. So I said, let's set the scene. This just happened to me in Target, I think about 2 weeks ago. So you're in the store, you start chatting with someone in line, and maybe you have a few kids in the cart grabbing for the nearby, candy or whatever. And the person you're making small talk with asks for your information because they find out you teach lessons. So I just did this experience here. You rummage through your purse, you find your soggy receipt, you write your information down and you hand it to them, and you lost the client. need for business cards. I'm going to reference my colleague Bob Keefe a lot. He is a local guitar teacher in Lansing, and he and I have probably the biggest studios out in Lansing with 25 plus students. And so his business card, how many have business cards? Okay, so this isn't that, I don't need to like go too in depth into this, but I think this is really important, and also putting it out there, not just handing it to people, but pinning it up on boards, anywhere you can get it, putting it out in your studios. The other thing I wanted to talk about to set the stage for what we're going to be doing here today is setting an atmosphere for all of these ways that we're communicating with the public. So I feel like Bob and I have two different atmospheres to our cards. He's kind of in your face with his headshot there, and a little bit more casual. He has a lot of information, simple. I feel like my card, I try to do a less is more, because I feel like when I hand that card to someone, I want to encourage them to follow the things on the card. Like, what is this about? You know, I don't get too much information here. Let me go to her social media pages or her web page. So on your handout, if you're not familiar with how to make cards, I gave a few things that I've used. I used Shutterfly, I think, for this card, and I've used Vistaprint in the past. They're all very user-friendly. You can go on, find templates, and I really encourage you to do that to really start being able to put yourself out there in a very simple way. So growing a little bit bigger than the business card, we have our website. So how many have an established website? Okay, and this is new to some people. Would you all mind if I delve into kind of how to do this? Okay, cool. So we all know that the advanced past the days of using the phone book for locating services. So I feel like having a website is really crucial in this atmosphere that we're finding ourselves in. On your handout is a list of hosting sites. So this is where you want to start with creating your web page. A hosting site provides you with a template and can prompt you to set up your site. So all of the ones that I have there, Bob, my colleague, uses something called One-in-One. I use Wix, and I actually went on and found like top 10 rated website hosting that you can do. So that's on there too, the link to that. But I want to explore my site a little bit with you. I'm going to talk about this. So site atmosphere and tone. I have found that in a society that relies heavily on social media for communication, that a professional yet personal tone is most effective. And your professional tone can come from your choice of, and this seems very trivial, but choice of font, color, information included on the home page, upcoming events, as well as readings, teacher biography, contact information, links to policy, and professional headshots all give that sophisticated atmosphere. I actually debated when I was doing my website about putting student reviews on the first page. I thought, is that going to be too, not as professional when you first click on? And you might have some other thoughts about this, which is totally fine. But I thought about how are we, when we go look for a service, think about when you look up a hotel, or you go on Amazon to buy something, you go right to the reviews, right? We're a society just focused on reviews, and what do other people have to say who have tried this product? So I think having that here, especially if you have some good ones, is a really nice thing for students to see right off the bat. And then you might say, oh, how do I get some of these reviews? So one of my students who left, she was an older student, 73, she left me. She said, could I write you a review and you can use it on your webpage? And I said, sure. Another way to do it would be if you do have students that leave, you can have an exit interview. So maybe have them say what they like best about your studio, have them write it down, and then of course you usually want to gain permission to use it on your social media page. Okay, so that's what I have done there with my home page. And feel free to stop and ask questions if you have any. So your personal touch comes from allowing the atmosphere of your home studio and your teaching style come through in your web page. And this can be exhibited in the form of student reflections, unprofessional pictures of your studio and events, and links to your other student social media pages. So I have that in studio information. You can go to pictures. So here's some things, that the studio's been doing. And then I feel like I don't always give too much information because I'll have people then email me and ask, I saw that picture, what'd you do there? So it's kind of okay to still leave your customer guessing a little bit. Another nice thing that these hosting websites do is that they allow you to set up a contact through your web page. And so sometimes I'll get an email and it will actually say it's coming from my web page. So it's always nice to know too where your referrals and your business is coming from. It's another nice thing. And I'm not sure if any of you are wondering about price. So in general, you have to pay for your domain name. So see how I have HidleyPianoStudio.com? So when you sign up for these hosting sites, if you don't pay for your name, you get like a conglomerate of things after your URL. So you get like HidleyPianoStudio.com/Wix, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And that doesn't look too pretty on a business card. So to pay for the hosting, it's about, this one that I use is about $170 a year. This is through Wix. But I think it's completely worth it. And it's really nice, and it's a really great professional way to get out there and just, of course, refer people to your site when you're speaking with them and handing out business cards and such. So let me go back to here. All right. So the next, going a little bit bigger. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. Oh, no, hold on. Not letting me go to the next slide. There we go. Okay. So, social media. Has anyone explored this world yet? Yes, with your business?
Yeah.
Yes. It's so fantastic. So probably the most informal, personal, and interactive way you will allow clients into your studio is through social media. And so remember, the door is not the only way now in this climate that we live in that you can come into your private studio. And so the first social media outlet I've explored is Facebook. I use it to post upcoming events, interesting articles, musical facts, listening examples for students, and recordings of students playing. At the time, a Facebook page, when I signed up for Facebook, it was like closed. But I don't know if you've been familiar with this, but there are two types of groups you can create on Facebook for your business. You can have a business page, and you can have a group. So let's just take a peek at this. I just learned of this. I found, there's more on that fish head to come. So this is my business page. And if I were to describe what it's like, it's a little bit more like a web page with some interaction. So I post videos, I do, upcoming events. Sometimes I occasionally do little quotes in my studio behind on the wall there, and I'll post things like that. And it's really good to be active on your social media pages because that's what people are looking for that today. They don't want to just come to your house and then leave and not hear from you. So I think that it's really interesting to be on here. Anyway, so this is the business portion. I also have a private studio page. Just try to get here. And I call it Hidley Studio Share. Oh, is it not? Let's see. Well, they were linked together. Let's see. Oh, I may not be able to do it. I was doing it on my computer. I'll describe it. So it's similar to this. This is open to anyone. Any of my friends, any of their friends. It's very public. My share page is just a closed group for my studio members, just to kind of create that little bonding atmosphere online. So I love this about Facebook because you can get a little bit of everything. And so anyway, that's what we do there. Then the next frontier I use is YouTube. Is anyone on YouTube channel? It's great. So I feel like it's the new frontier in performance. I feel like a lot of us will shudder at the thought of giving any credibility to the performances on YouTube. However, I have found it to be a fantastic performance platform for my students. Believe it or not, the woman who got me into using YouTube as a way to encourage performing was the 73-year-old student I had mentioned earlier. She kind of came to me one day and she handed me my YouTube channel information. She goes, "You need to be on YouTube." And I remember thinking, okay, what am I going to do with this? And it is one of my favorite things to use for students. So it's come in handy. Since performance is a big part of my studio atmosphere, students who are not able to attend one of the performance opportunities that I offer during the year, sometimes we'll post our pieces on YouTube, so they don't have this sense of, I worked really hard and now I have a soccer game and I can't come, and it's fantastic. And let me go to it so you can kind of see. Let's see. All right, so it's behind here. Come back. I'm gonna get this thing that disappeared. Okay. So this is my YouTube channel, and you can have your students subscribe to it, and a lot of the young kids today have devices that they will get updates on when their friends are posting videos. So I call it our virtual recital because it's just ongoing. But I keep it, and this is where you can decide the tone of the atmosphere of your YouTube channel. Mine's very laid back. I require the students to have, you want to have good rhythm, good technique, and things like that. But it's nice to see, even a student who might be struggling at first, I just encourage them to post right away, even like after the second lesson. Let's post your, airplane song. Let's get you out there. And the kids really like it too, because I think it makes performing less scary. Because they still hold themselves. I'm sitting there with my phone, and some of the kids get really scared. They're like, oh. But let me show you Daniel here, just so you can get a sense of the atmosphere. It's not too formal. Extra credit if you know what this is. Has anybody taught this people? So that is actually Daniel's. I think we did this on his 4th lesson. So, and he was so excited. I don't know if any of you who are exploring this performance atmosphere, the kids will go home, and you can't watch your YouTube performance in the studio because it's not real then. You have to watch it from a different device in a different location, and then you're YouTube famous. That's how it works. It's true. They're adorable with it. So there's that. They enjoy having that kind of exposure. A couple of the other things that I love about YouTube is when my students post something, if they aren't able to have a family member or a grandparent attend one of the recitals, they refer them to that, and they feel like their family was able to see what they're up to. I actually had a really, really interesting story. I have a student from Argentina who posted a simple video of the Star Wars theme, and it was so simple. And so, sometimes you'll see that family members will watch. I think maybe the students cap out around 30 views per video at the most. I'm scrolling through one day, and the student has 100 views. I'm like, what? So he comes to lessons next week, and I said, you got a lot of views. That's amazing. He goes, well, I showed my grandmother in Argentina, and she was so excited to be able to hear me, and then I guess she just showed the rest of Argentina. But I think, my studio is performing in other countries in a way, right? And his family doesn't have to miss out on his piano accomplishments and things like that. So it's just so interesting to start using this for that, and I really encourage you to do it. The last thing that is new to me, I just started this, is my Twitter account. I actually had one of my high school students help me with this because I had this vibe in my head that Twitter was super professional, and I was kind of nervous to use it. And of course, my high school student set me straight right away. She's like, absolutely not. It's really laid back. And if I were to give it a vibe, I think of it as like a billboard. right? They want you to keep it short and sweet, and I think that it really works for people who might not want to have the interaction that, so this is Twitter, the interaction that Facebook, has, but might want to just keep up with simple updates. So I try to keep it short and sweet. Even the videos that I might post, I should probably explain that, fish guy. The videos that I post they shorten them, so they're not as long. So I think of it as a billboard and just a nice way. Let me get into that. A nice way to kind of have your students, parents enjoy that, especially busy parents that aren't able to do a lot on social media. So I'll segue into the performance opportunities since we're kind of on that. I offer a couple different performance opportunities for my studio throughout the year. I think it's very important to have those different ways to perform, because we as musicians are not always performing in the most high-stressed situation, right? Sometimes we're playing for fun, sometimes we're playing at church, and sometimes we are playing, in that big recital that we're getting dressed up for and memorizing. So this fish guy, I have about 3 informal recitals a year. I used to call them music shares. I've been doing them for about 7 years. And what it is, I use it to encourage frequent performance. So around Halloween, we do something called the music scare. And the kids are allowed to come in costume. And I usually put in the email that I send out that you have to be able to play in your costume. And this kid, in fact, played very well in this vision. I just cannot play. And this is him looking at me because he wasn't sure, what he was supposed to do after he played. This is just too funny. And if you look, he's the Swedish fish. Oh, yeah. So what we do too, and you'll see me using the keyboard here. So I have a keyboard in my studio for me to be able to demonstrate, and because I don't have room for 2 grand pianos. So it's a point of interest in the studio, and the kids love to fiddle with the sounds. So I made the music scare based around this keyboard. I said, we'll dress up our music. Once they learn their piece, they can pick a sound, and they pick funky sounds, and then they get to perform on the keyboard with the funky sound. So this is a really great first recital for kids, especially if you're new. It's so laid back, it has a fun vibe. The kids still need to, in order to pick that sound, they have to know their piece really well. The other recitals that I do are a holiday one, and we usually do that at a retirement community or a local nursing home. And then we do something called Music Care. That's in February. So sometimes, I think this year I might actually take a donation for like the American Heart Foundation or something like that. Just to show the kids that when you perform, it doesn't always have to be about you, or it doesn't always have to be scary. And so another thing I do with these informal recitals is the program is a lot different. I don't do a traditional program with names and your piece. What I'll do is sometimes I have draw your number out of a hat. And because a lot of times when you come to a performance, you're like, okay, the little kids are going to go first. We're going to have to sit through a few of these, and then we'll get to the older kids, right? And they catch on to that. They're like, I'm with the little kids, and I want to be like a big kid. So I did this a couple times where I brought a hat, you have a bunch of numbers, you pick a number out. It's the greatest thing. You could have a high school kid go first, a little kid go last, and they're all mixed up. Another thing that they have to do, if you do the draw a hat number out of a hat thing, they have to announce their piece. So this gives them a little bit of a public speaking experience. They have to be able to be loud enough for everybody to hear, that type of thing. For the music here, oftentimes I'll have them answer a question. So everybody will get a universal question saying, today we're gonna, before we play, tell us one thing that you love. I take a love theme. So love about your piece, or one thing that made you, I think one year we all drew pictures for our pieces. So with these informal recitals, I try to break the performance audience barrier a little bit to show that your audience isn't scary. And then once a year, I do an annual recital. That's on the scarier side, where you have your pieces memorized, you get dressed up, So it's great, I think, to give a variety. So going back here. Okay, so let's talk about our business plan. So in your handout, I do have a copy of my policy. And I like to think of our policy as, because we're in such an intimate business, right, with our studios. And I like to think of it as my structured voice in my intimate business. And people don't mind that. I get scared creating my policy. I often look like this woman. Like ripping my hair out, getting angry because, I need to revamp my payment and cancellation policies and, so I just wanted to share with you, I'm in no way a guru on this, studio policy formation, but I think that all of us can probably learn from each other. And I put this in here, not because I don't think we're all good at creating policies, but I am trying something new that I feel like as private teachers, we're all a little scared of. I changed to semester payments. Does anybody just use semester payment? You do?
I want to.
You want to? Let me encourage you to do it. Okay.
My son's violin teacher requires semester payments, so I like the concept.
You like the concept? Okay. So I will give you my experience. I just started it. I actually used to offer a yearly payment. Believe it or not, I had a few people do that. Believe it or not, I was so scared to put that out there. Right now I'm just doing semester. So, and of course I have a little disclaimer in here somewhere that, if you are unable to pay for the whole semester, please talk with me personally. Out of 25 kids right now, I only have 2 people doing that. So people don't mind, and if you're a parent of school-age children, my daughter's in dance, we're in soccer. Here's the thing, you're thinking, when I pay for that semester, I'm thinking of an experience, not an individual weekly thing. I'm thinking at the end, they're going to know a lot about soccer. They're going to play this tournament. They're going to be in this dance recital. And I think that also motivates you as the teacher. If you're going to ask for a semester payment, you better have a semester plan, right? So this motivated me to schedule my recitals and things a lot earlier, give them a scope of what they actually are paying for. And it has worked out fantastically. So along with the semester payment, I kind of tightened up my cancellation policy. And I used to have a lot that was involved in my policy, like if you were sick, and I learned, actually, Dr. Smoker, I remember you saying just less is more, right? And you just get to the point, in your policy. And there's basically no cancellation policy. You're paying for 13 lessons. If you decide to go to soccer instead of piano, that's your decision. I feel like that's how I come across in my studio policy. Of course, there are other circumstances that, and then like I said, this is your structured voice. You can have your intimate relationships as well. But in general, I think since people are paying for it, I have had not one issue. So if you're not already doing this and you have a larger studio, go for it. That's why I thought I have to put this in here because I am just absolutely loving it, and bookkeeping is no longer a nightmare. Yes, go ahead.
If you're presenting it as paying for a package amount of lessons, do you have people with vacation plans or busy weeks where they try to shift around when those lessons happen? Or are they keeping it to the weekly?
They're keeping it to weekly. I don't have as much of that in like the fall and the spring semester. In the summer, and we'll get to that in a minute, I do have more of that, and I'll talk about how I'm going to handle that this summer. Although I don't have any actual evidence that this is going to work for the summer, but I'll let you know. But and so yeah, and I have had students leave, and they missed that lesson. Now there was a conflict with soccer. I had probably like 3 Mondays where all of my students were going to miss. So of course from a teaching perspective, that's not great. You want your students to have a weekly commitment. So we did all switch to a different day. So of course there's, some flexibility there. Yes?
You mentioned Monday. I'm just wondering how this works. If you're really following the school calendar, how do account for all those Mondays in the fall that the school might be off?
Perfect question. So, I teach Lansing and Ithaca primarily, students. In my email at the beginning of the semester, I say I'm going to follow the Lansing school calendar. And then I calculate, making sure that each student is going to have the same number of lessons. So I think in the fall, everybody is ending up with 13 or 14 lessons total. Yes, and how I work that is if the school is off for a holiday, I'm off. If the school is closed for a half day, then I still teach. So somehow it worked out that everybody got for it. And if one, like Monday, if the Monday crew was gypped a lesson, I said, well, since the school's closed on this day, I'm going to teach that day so that you get your 13 lessons.
So Monday, people probably get a lesson the week of Thanksgiving.
Yes,
So
Monday
that's
people do.
One Monday you could make up.
Yes, yeah, and it didn't really work out. You sit down with your calendar and you sit down with your local school calendar. It worked out to about 14 or 13 lessons in the fall, and and I can email numbers and things, and I actually have a printout of this that I should have included in there, but if anybody would like it, I have a printout of my schedule for this fall and spring. And I'd be willing to send that to anyone. Of course, it might not follow your local school calendar exactly, but you can kind of see what I did with that. Yeah, great question. Thank you. Let's see. I'm just going to move to the next one here. Okay. I wanted to also talk about how I handled long-term absence, and that came in the wake of my son being born. So, and this might also happen to you. If you go on a vacation in the summer or a student's going to be away, I feel like we have to manage these long-term absences a little bit better. At least I felt that way. So we just recently added our third little guy to our family, and Cole's birth came at the peak of my studio numbers. So I was maintaining 40 students at the time with active waiting list of 6. And I'll talk more about the active waiting list. So since he was born right before the summer, I didn't think it was wise to come back to lessons after school had let out. And I was, of course, going to need some time to recover. So I thought, how in the world am I going to maintain my students for 4 months, right? So I came up with a goal for my students while I was gone, that they were going to learn how to properly teach themselves a piece. And I called it the Summer Survival Packet. So I'm going to do you have a copy of the instructions to the packet, but I didn't give you the whole thing. I put music in here that there's about maybe 4 to 6 pieces in each packet, and I'll just pass it around. They're leveled. I'm not quite sure why I did numbers, but it's like beginner, kind of mid-range, and more advanced, depending on what student you have. So pass them around if you want to see the music selections that I picked out. And what the students were told to do was to pick a piece from the packet, look over the instructions on how to teach it to yourself, and then I did check-in lessons in July before I came back in August, at the end of August. So then they were to show me what they had taught themselves when I got back. So I had a variety of outcomes to this. I had some students who learned the whole packet, and they had no summer slide, and they were fantastic, and just showed me. I had a student who learned one piece, and he was so proud of himself, and he thought, I can't believe I did this on my own. And then I had some students who just lost the packet. So it was, it was a variety of outcomes, but. In general, I think the parents were also, it was comforting to them to know, well, if I want my kid to continue with Rachel, then we'll open up this packet and we'll try something. And I tried to make my instructions. They probably could be modified too if I ever do this again, but this was kind of my first go at it. But it really did work out. It was a great, I think a great thing. Okay, so we already kind of talked a little bit about the performance opportunities that I offer my students, because I had to explain that fish head. But I want to talk about things that I do to encourage motivation. So I picked this definition of motivation because I love some parts of it. is this internal and external factors that stimulate desire and energy in people to be continually interested and committed. And the words that I really speak to me are external, energy, and continually. So oftentimes we think motivation has to originate from inside, right? But there are so many external things that we can do as teachers to really drive that internal motivation. And I love the word desire, but desire without energy or momentum, right? It has to go somewhere. It needs that energy. And then I love the word interested, but you have to be continually interested. And that's tough, right? And the kids today, continually interested, they're interested for like 5 seconds and it's gone, right? So I want to explore some of the things that I do to do that. So we talked about the formal and informal recitals and my YouTube presence. There's the fish head again. And of course, I have to dress up for the music scare too. I always tell my students I won't make them do something that I wouldn't also do. So here I am. 2 other things that I do that are really effective are personal portfolios. So this actually stems, I said, a lot of these things that I'm doing stem from me being a mother and what I'm encountering with my kids in their extracurricular activities. So the personal portfolios come from my son's swimming lessons. They actually gave me a report card once after his swimming lessons, and I thought, what the heck are they reporting? I mean, he didn't drown, that's a good thing, right? That's all I wanted. But I don't want to give my students grades or a report card, but how are we going to measure progress, right? And the parents, they're coming, they don't really know what my idea, where I'm going, unless you have a clear curriculum, but even then, maybe a student won't stay on track, and it's not like we're in a public school setting. So personal portfolios, I use Google Docs for this, and I have a recording device on my piano, kind of looks like a R2D2 or something sitting there, and the students, anytime they have something that they want to submit to their portfolio, so I made a bunch of files for each student on Google Docs, and they can play a piece and say, I want to put that in my portfolio, and it kind of acts as a journal. So we record it, it goes right in here, and then you can share it with the parents or grandparents or whoever wants the link. And it is so wonderful because the kids then can go, and I encourage, I'll be like, remember your portfolio, go back and listen to last year's Christmas thing, go back and listen to last year's recital or NISMA or festival piece, and see how far you've come. And then the parents can really see that as well. Plus, it's just awesome for them to be able to share it, because once you share the link, they can share it to grandparents or whatever. So another thing that this helps with is reflecting on a performance. So if you want a student to go home and listen to their performance, it's so easy. We record it, you can give them a listening lesson or a listening list of things to do when they're listening to their own piece. They go home, they can open their portfolio and do that and bring it back to you. And so I think also just recording in itself is a little nerve-wracking. I find students, they're either really great on stage and like terrified of recording, or they're terrified of recording, or like the opposite. So I think this also helps them have a sense of accountability. Like they don't want to put something in their portfolio that's not ready, right? So, and this has worked out really, really nicely for my studio, and encouraging kids, especially if they're in maybe like a practicing rut too. And we can say, put this in your portfolio. Studio competition. So because I do teach the surrounding schools, and a lot of my students don't know each other very well, I have these, once a year I hold a competition. So it encourages the studio to excel in maybe a certain area, like note naming, key signatures, things like that. This also makes piano lessons feel a little less isolated and more of like a group activity. This past January, I did a Note Olympics in conjunction with the Winter Olympics that was taking place. It was a 3-week challenge during which the students competed for the fastest note naming time. And the winners of each week faced off on the 4th week for the gold, the silver, and the bronze. And it is getting to the point now that some of my students from different school districts only know each other because they have come neck and neck in these competitions. So it's been good fun, and that's one of my students who got the gold. I had to do different levels too, because some students are not, so it was like high school level and elementary level. So we'll do that about once a year, and the kids really look forward to that. And then I also offer a scholarship, and that's the ML Sabat Arts Award in your packet. I inherited some money from my grandmother when she passed away, and she auctioned off her piano, and I use it to start a scholarship for my studio. And once a year, a student that's 11 or older can apply for it, and there are the questions in there. They actually have to, I decided to make it not performance-based because I wanted to really encourage my students to think outside of even just piano, right? How is music impacting our world? How does it impact politics, our education system? And so students anonymously submit the application. They are identified by a number. And then at the big recital, the annual recital, I pick the person that I feel most, thoughtfully answered those questions, and they get a free semester of piano. And so it's really neat. Actually, one year, two sisters, I couldn't decide between two people, and I ended up picking two numbers. One person getting a month free of piano lessons, and it ended up being two sisters. So there they are. Okay, so the last thing I want to do here are a couple things. I wanted to tell you about something I'm going to try this summer. This is modeled after summer camps that my kids are involved in. So oftentimes I'll notice that during the summer, my students cannot complete a whole month of lessons. Yep, gotcha. So this year we're going to do summer sessions. I'm going to do about 2 weeks for each session with including 4 lessons per session. And the sessions that I'm going to do are based on some sort of, musical aspect. So the first one we're going to do is dueling duos, so encouraging collaboration. Crazy chords, I'm teaming up with Bob Keefe to do, some harmonization. And then music and movies. That'd be fun, learning about film composers. And then Into the Swing is a 1-week intensive to get ourselves back into school and regular lessons. I'm going to, I want to talk just really briefly about something I tried with my waiting list. So this is a student of mine who is actually studying piano pedagogy at Geneseo, I believe. Yeah. And I had quite an extensive waiting list when I had 40 students, and I thought, man, I don't want them just to sit there, and they really didn't want to travel all the way down to Ithaca for lessons. So I actually employed the services of my advanced student, and we teamed up. He started teaching the students on my waiting list. He was under a different policy. It's included in your packet, and I would observe his lessons every 4 to 6 weeks, and it was really interesting. And then if I had an opening, I took one of his students. So it was a way to actually ensure job security too for me. Yeah.
I really thought about doing this.
Do it.
And so did
Yes.
you provide, what kind of education, pedagogy education did you provide for him?
Yep, every time I observed him, I would sit with my computer and write up some, so it was fun for me too.
So through observation?
Yep, through observation.
Did you
Yep.
have him observe any of your lessons?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was like a requirement. I said, come,
Cool.
observe, and of course he's a student, so he got to ask me questions, and it was fantastic for him. And for me too, it was interesting to teach a different, different type of, concept. So, we can, if you have questions, we can chat and things after. So the last thing I'm doing, like 1 minute?
Yeah.
Okay. The last thing I did, this is just the broader scope. 4 of my colleagues, there's Bob and Susan and Julia. These are teachers in Lansing. We are actually, this is kind of going beyond your studio. We are teaming up to create a network in our area called Medley, so Music Educators of Lansing, New York. And so I just want to encourage us all to think of us as just a big group of teachers, right? And we can work together, we can share students. We have fantastic ideas coming out of these guys, like we're going to have a YouTube presence, but it's going to be a little bit more sophisticated and things like that. So if you want to know more, I know we're running out of time, come and ask me because I'm just so excited about this group of people that are coming together. So in the end, I encourage you all to keep doing what you're doing and to teach beyond the bench and beyond your own studios. Thank you.